Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. The London skies were overcast as usual, and a light rain gently lapped against the towering glass edifice on the banks of the Thames. As one of the most famous architects in London, he should be proud of his achievements. But at the moment, his eyes revealed a hint of loneliness and despondency. Suddenly, the apartment's intercom went off, breaking the silence in the room. Oliver frowned and walked towards the control panel in the doorway. "Mr. Wright, a lady claiming to be a social worker has insisted on seeing you on an urgent matter." His personal secretary Emily's voice came out of the speaker. Oliver sighed and rubbed his temples with his hands. "Well, let her up," he replied briefly. A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Emily walked in with a young woman who looked a little rattled. "Mr. Wright, this is Sophie Thompson from London Social Services," Emily introduced. Sophie smiled nervously and held out her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Wright. Very sorry to bother you, but I have a very urgent case at hand that needs your help." Oliver politely shook her hand and gestured for her to sit down. "Go ahead, Miss Thompson. What can I do for you?" Sophie took a deep breath and pulled a folder out of her briefcase. "It's like this, Mr. Wright. We recently received a case involving a mother and her two children. The mother attempted suicide last night and is now being treated in hospital. We found this letter at her home." She carefully handed Oliver an envelope. Oliver took the envelope, a sudden sense of foreboding welling up in him. When he saw the familiar handwriting on the envelope, his hands couldn't help but tremble. "Dear Oliver," the letter begins. Suddenly, the past floods Oliver's mind like a tidal wave. It was as if he had been transported back to the morning that changed his life 11 years ago. The traffic in London was particularly congested that day, and he arrived at the office almost an hour and a half later than usual. When Oliver finally arrives at the office, he is immediately greeted by his secretary, Emily. "Mr. Wright, Mr. Benjamin has been looking for you. He says there is urgent business to be attended to." Oliver frowned. Benjamin Carter is one of the firm's partners and the son of founder Henry Carter. Since Henry's retirement, Benjamin and his brother Michael have taken over the company. But unfortunately, they did not inherit their father's business talents. "Okay, I'm on my way to him," Oliver said, heading towards Benjamin's office. Pushing the door open, Oliver sees Benjamin anxiously pacing back and forth in his office. "Ah, Oliver, you're finally here?" Benjamin couldn't wait as soon as he saw him. "Something big is going on, that there's a problem over at Johnson Art, and you have to fly to Paris immediately to deal with it." Oliver froze. Johnson Art is one of their company's largest clients, accounting for almost half of the company's annual revenue. "What happened?" he asked. Benjamin waved his hand irritably. "I'm not sure of the specifics, but Simon Johnson retired, and now his nephew Paul has taken over the company. He was unhappy with our last few projects and threatened to terminate the collaboration. You must go to Paris at once and convince him to continue working with us." Oliver took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. He knew in his heart of hearts that this situation should have been handled by Benjamin or Michael themselves. But since they've taken over the company, almost all the tough questions have been pushed onto Oliver. "I know," Oliver said eventually. "I'll book a flight as soon as I can." Benjamin breathed a sigh of relief. "Great, you must take off before noon today. Paul Johnson said if we delay any longer, he's going to have to find another company." Oliver nodded and turned around, ready to leave the office. Just then he suddenly remembered something. "By the way, Benjamin, I have a date with Sarah to go to the play tonight. You know, our 10th wedding anniversary." Benjamin interrupted impatiently. "Oliver, you should understand how important Johnson Art is to our company. I'm sure Sarah will understand. You can have her help you pack and go straight to the airport." Oliver bit his lip and finally nodded. He knew Benjamin was right, but he still felt a pang of discomfort inside. Walking out of Benjamin's office, Oliver's mind can't help but go back to his career. He joined Carter Architects right out of college when it was a small design firm. Under Henry Carter's leadership, the company weathered the economic downturn of Margaret Thatcher's reign. and instead seized the opportunity to acquire large quantities of cheap machinery and equipment in difficult times and then resold them at high prices to developing countries. As the company expanded, Henry began to shift his focus to Europe, specializing in the assembly and distribution of machinery and equipment for major companies. Under Henry's leadership, Carter Architecture and Design has quickly grown into an industry leader. However, since Benjamin and Michael joined the company, things have started to take a sharp turn for the worse. Although both brothers were highly educated, their insistence on just-in-time management resulted in frequent delays and customer complaints. As the patriarch of the company, Oliver has repeatedly made suggestions to Benjamin and Michael that have gone unheeded. They seem to resent Oliver's closeness to Henry and are always secretly ostracizing him. Oliver sighed and picked up the phone on his desk. He had to call Sarah and tell her that tonight's plans had fallen through. "Hello, Sarah," said Oliver cautiously when the call was answered. "Oliver? What's wrong?" Sarah's voice came from the other end of the line. "Honey, I'm so sorry." Oliver took a deep breath. "There's been a problem on the company's end, and I have to fly to Paris immediately. The play tonight." Before Oliver could finish, Sarah interrupted him. "Again? Oliver, do you know what day it is?" Oliver felt a pang of guilt. "I know, honey. I'm really sorry." But Johnson Art sighed. "Always working." Sarah's voice was filled with disappointment and anger. "Oliver, it's been a long time since we've had a good time together. Do you know how much I was looking forward to tonight?" Oliver closed his eyes and tried to control his emotions. "Sarah, I promise, when I get back." "Never mind," Sarah said coldly. "I know you have an important job. Have a nice trip, Mr. Wright." The phone hangs up abruptly, leaving Oliver standing alone in his office, feeling more alone and powerless than ever. Just then, Emily knocked on the door. "Mr. Wright, I've booked your flight. Your flight leaves in 2 hours." Oliver barely managed to squeeze out a smile. "Thank you, Emily." As Oliver packs his bags and prepares to leave the office, his eyes inadvertently sweep over a photograph on the wall. It was a celebratory photo of the company's 25th anniversary, with Henry Carter standing in the center with a big smile on his face and his arm around Oliver's shoulders. In the corner of the photo, Benjamin and Michael are standing a little farther away with forced smiles on their faces. Oliver couldn't resist approaching the photo and gently caressing the frame. He still vividly remembers what Henry said to him. "Oliver, you were like a son to me. I'm sure one day you'll be the top man of this company." However, the reality is far from that. Upon Henry's retirement, all shares in the company were transferred to Benjamin and Michael. Oliver doesn't even have a director's position, despite working for the company for so many years. Oliver sighed deeply and turned to leave the office. He knew that a difficult negotiation awaited him, and he had to give it his all. However, he had a vague premonition in his mind that this trip to Paris might change his life. As Oliver got into the cab to the airport, his mind kept going back to all the changes that had taken place over the past few years. Since Benjamin and Michael took over the company, the atmosphere has become increasingly tense. They moved the company's headquarters to a luxury office building in central London, claiming it would attract more high-end clients. However, the high cost of rent and renovation added to the company's financial situation. To add to Oliver's unease, Sarah has also been transferred to a new office as Michael's personal assistant. Even though Sarah claimed it was just a job transfer, Oliver always felt there was something fishy about it. Whenever he returns from a business trip, he always hears gossip that Sarah and Michael are getting too close. Oliver shook his head, trying to chase away the unpleasant thoughts. He told himself that Sarah loved him, that they had been married for 10 years and had weathered so many storms. However, a little voice deep inside kept questioning. If Sarah really loved you, why would she act so indifferent to your business trips? As the cab pulls into Heathrow, Oliver sees Sarah's car parked on the side of the road. She stood beside the car, watching him with an expressionless face. "Sarah," said Oliver in surprise. "What are you doing here?" Sarah gave him a cold look. "I thought I should at least send it to my husband. After all, he's going to miss our anniversary for work." Oliver felt a pang of guilt. "Honey, I'm really sorry. You know I didn't want this." Sarah didn't answer, just opened the trunk and took out a suitcase. "Here are your clothes and necessities. I guess you forgot your toothbrush again. Oliver took the suitcase, and a warmth welled up in his heart. Even though Sarah looked angry, she prepared his luggage. Perhaps things weren't as bad as he thought. Just then, a shiny yellow Lamborghini pulled up next to them. The window rolled down, revealing Michael's handsome but uncomfortable face. "Oh, Sarah, there you are." Michael smiled. "I was just heading to the office. Need a ride?" Oliver noticed that Sarah's expression suddenly became slightly flustered. "Oh no, Michael. I'll just drive myself back." Michael shrugged. "Well, I'll see you later then. Have a good trip, Oliver," he said and drove off. Oliver frowned. He always thought there was something fishy about Michael's appearance. But now was not the time to pursue this. His flight was about to take off. "Sarah," Oliver said softly, "I promise we'll celebrate when I get back." Sarah forced a smile. "Well, good luck with your work." With that, she turned and walked to her car. Oliver looked at Sarah's back with mixed emotions. How he wished he could stay and be there for Sarah. But the pressures and responsibilities of his job drove him to embark on this journey. With a heavy heart, Oliver turned toward the airport lobby. What he doesn't know is that this trip to Paris will be a turning point in his life, and what awaits him will be a series of shocking discoveries and difficult choices. As the plane slowly landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport, Oliver Wright's heart remained heavy. Through the porthole, he saw the gray skies of Paris, not unlike his mood at the moment. Images of Sarah's cold demeanor and Michael's sudden appearance before leaving London kept flashing through his mind, giving him a pang of distraction. Walking out of the airport lobby, Oliver is surprised to find a man in a suit waiting holding a sign with his name on it. "Mr. Wright," the man smiled as he stepped forward. "I'm Paul Johnson's assistant, Alex. Mr. Johnson arranged for me to pick you up." Oliver froze. Typically, their company's clients don't send someone to meet them at the airport, let alone a reception arranged by the president of Johnson Art himself. "Thanks, that's too kind," Oliver replied politely, while mentally second-guessing Paul Johnson's intentions. Along the way, Alex enthusiastically described the sights of Paris and Paul Johnson's expectations for the meeting. However, Oliver's doubts deepen as their car pulls into a luxury hotel near the Champs-Élysées. "What's?" Oliver asked in disbelief. Alex smiled and explained, "This is our corporate suite that Mr. Johnson arranged especially for you. He thought you would enjoy the setting." Oliver forced back his surprised expression and followed Alex into the hotel. The suite is spacious and bright, with a full view of the Eiffel Tower from the window. A reception of this caliber is far beyond the standard of a typical business meeting. Just as Oliver was still pondering what it all meant, the phone in his room rang. It's Paul Johnson himself. "Oliver, welcome to Paris." Paul's voice was full of enthusiasm. "I hope you like the accommodations we've arranged for you. We're having a small dinner party tonight at a 3-star Michelin restaurant near the Louvre, and I hope you'll enjoy it." Oliver tried to remain calm. "Thank you for the kind invitation, Paul. But shouldn't we talk business first?" Paul smiled brightly. "Don't worry, my friend. We have all the time in the world to talk business. Just relax tonight and enjoy the Parisian cuisine." After hanging up, Oliver sat on the couch, deep in thought. Paul Johnson's enthusiasm seems a bit overdone. Could Johnson Art actually be considering poaching him? Or is there something else going on here? The dinner was bigger than Oliver expected. In addition to Paul Johnson, there are several Johnson Art executives and their spouses. There was a lot of laughter and a relaxed atmosphere, with hardly any mention of business matters. Throughout the evening, Oliver had felt like a guest who had been given special favors, rather than a partner who had come to solve a problem. The feeling was both flattering and disturbing. Back at the hotel, Oliver lies in bed, tossing and turning. He picked up his cell phone and hesitated for a moment before dialing Sarah's number. However, the phone rang for a long time without being answered. Oliver frowned. It would be about 9 p.m. in London now, and Sarah was usually home at this time. Was she still mad at him for what happened earlier, so she didn't answer his calls? Just as he was about to hang up, the phone was suddenly picked up. "Hello." A slightly lethargic female voice came. "Sarah," said Oliver, a little surprised. "Are you okay?" The voice sounds a little strange. "Oh, Oliver," Sarah's voice suddenly became a little more sober. "I was just taking a shower." "Anything?" Oliver finds Sarah's explanation a bit far-fetched, but he chooses to believe her. Nothing. Just wanted to let you know I've arrived safely in Paris. How was your day? Not bad. Sarah's reply was short and cold. If there's nothing else, I'd like to rest. I have to get up early tomorrow. Okay, so? Oliver was about to say something else, but the phone had already been hung up. Putting his cell phone down, Oliver felt a pang of loss. Sarah's attitude gave him chills, and there was always something unnatural about her explanations. But he quickly pushed those thoughts out of his mind, telling himself he shouldn't be imagining things. Early the next morning, Oliver was awakened by a phone call from Paul Johnson. Oliver, are you ready? We have a board meeting today. Why don't you come along? Oliver was a little confused. Paul, is it appropriate for me to attend your board meetings when I am not an employee of Johnson Art? Paul smiled and said, never mind the details. I'm sure your insights will be valuable to us. Hurry up, the car is waiting downstairs. In the conference room, Oliver was surprised to find that all the board members seemed to be waiting for him to speak. As he talked about several of Carter Construction's recent projects, the directors nodded their heads frequently, even as some openly expressed their dissatisfaction with Benjamin and Michael's management style. This situation reinforces Oliver's belief that Johnson Art might actually be considering poaching him. But why now? Why him? After the meeting, Paul invited Oliver to go golfing with him. On the golf course, Oliver finally couldn't resist asking, Paul, I appreciate your hospitality, but when are we going to talk business? Paul smiled mysteriously. Oliver, we've been talking business. Don't you feel it? Just then, Oliver's cell phone rings. It's his secretary, Emily. Mr. Wright. Emily's voice sounded a little nervous. I just got a strange call. It's Mrs. Wright. She wants to know when you're coming back to London. I followed your instructions and said you were still in Paris, but she sounded upset. Oliver's heart suddenly tightened. Thank you, Emily. I'll call Sarah back later. After hanging up, Oliver notices that Paul is giving him a strange look. Is something wrong, Oliver? Asked Paul, concerned. Oliver hesitated for a moment, then decided to come clean. Paul, I think there might be something wrong at home. There's something unusual about Sarah's behavior lately. Paul nodded thoughtfully. I see. Oliver, if you need to go back to London early, I totally understand. But if you'd like, I can arrange for someone to help you understand the situation. After all, some things are better confirmed in person. Oliver looked at Paul in surprise. You mean? Paul patted Oliver on the shoulder. Trust me, Oliver. Sometimes we need to face the truth, no matter how unpleasant it may be. I'll arrange for you to book a flight for tonight, but to the public we'll claim you're still in Paris. That way, if anything does go wrong, you'll be able to find out for yourself. Oliver took a deep breath and nodded. He knew that what awaited him next could be a heartbreaking truth, but he was more willing to face reality than to live in constant doubt and uncertainty. That night, Oliver quietly returns to London. Instead of going straight home, he first checked into a hotel not far from home, as Paul had suggested. Lying in his hotel bed, Oliver tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He kept thinking back to all of Sarah's unusual behavior over the past few months and those meaningful looks from Michael. He told himself that maybe it was all in his head, but deep down, he knew it might not be that simple. Early the next morning, Oliver drove to his and Sarah's neighborhood. He parked on the corner of the street and quietly observed his home. At 9 a.m., Sarah's car pulled out of the garage. Oliver held his breath as he watched Sarah hurry toward the car. Just then, a familiar yellow Lamborghini pulled up to the curb. Michael stepped out of the car with a soft smile on his face that Oliver had never seen before. Oliver felt a wave of vertigo. He watched as Sarah and Michael talked intimately and then got into Michael's car together. Oliver felt as if his world had collapsed as the Lamborghini went on its merry way. He drove mechanically back to the hotel, his whole being in a trance, until the ringing of the phone brought him back to reality, and it was Paul Johnson. Oliver, are you okay? Paul's voice was full of concern. Oliver took a deep breath and tried to get his emotions under control. Paul, you're right. I saw something. Paul was silent for a moment, then said softly, I'm sorry, Oliver. But right now, you need to calm down and think about what to do next. Remember, no matter what happens, you have our support. After hanging up, Oliver sits on the edge of his bed and covers his face with his hands. He knew that a difficult situation awaited him next, but he was more willing to face this harsh truth than to continue living a lie. Oliver stood up, picked up his cell phone, and dialed a number. "Hello, I'm Oliver Wright. I need to hire a private investigator." Oliver Wright sat in his dimly lit hotel room, clutching the first report the private investigator had just filed. He took a deep breath and slowly opened the folder, his heart beating violently in his chest. The first page is a series of photographs taken at a fancy cafe near Carter Construction. The photo shows Sarah and Michael sitting in a secluded corner, their hands intimately intertwined. Oliver felt a wave of vertigo, and his hand trembled slightly as he nearly dropped the photo on the floor. It's probably just a normal work meeting, Oliver thought to himself. But deep down he knew that co-workers don't act this close to each other. Turning to the next page was a detailed timeline of Sarah's whereabouts over the past month. Oliver noticed that Sarah had lunch with Michael almost every weekday lunchtime, sometimes extending to 2 or 3 hours. Even more heartbreaking is the fact that during Oliver's business trips, Sarah often traveled to Michael's apartment after work, sometimes staying out all night. Oliver closed his eyes and felt a sharp headache. He thought about the nights Sarah claimed to be working overtime, the mornings when she looked exhausted. Everything was starting to become clear, but that clarity brought nothing but pain. The next few pages are a log of Sarah and Michael's calls and texts. Although the content is hidden, the frequent contact is telling. Oliver noticed that on those days when they had arguments, Sarah and Michael would become especially connected. Is she looking to him for comfort? Oliver thought bitterly. Instead of communicating with me and resolving the issues between us? On the last page is a financial report showing that Sarah has been frequenting some upscale stores and restaurants lately. These expenditures are far beyond her paycheck. Oliver frowned as he began to wonder if the luxuries were a gift from Michael. Putting the report down, Oliver felt a wave of exhaustion and betrayal like no other. He picked up the phone and dialed the private investigator's number. "I need more evidence." Oliver's voice was low and firm. "I need to know when and why they started. I need to know everything." Over the next few days, Oliver immersed himself in a world of photographs, recordings, and reports. Each new piece of evidence was like a sharp knife stabbing deep into his heart. He sees Sarah and Michael strolling through a park, having dinner at a fancy restaurant, and even picking out a ring at a jewelry store. However, what struck Oliver the most was a recording. That was Sarah and Michael in a private conversation. "We can't go on like this." Sarah's voice was filled with guilt and hesitation. "Oliver doesn't deserve to be treated like this." "But you love me, don't you?" Michael's voice was seductive. "Besides, it's for the company. Once Oliver is gone, we'll have full control of the Carter building." Hearing this, Oliver slammed off the recording. It finally dawned on him that this wasn't just an emotional betrayal. It was an elaborate plot. Sarah and Michael not only betrayed his relationship, but also tried to take away his position in the company. Armed with this heartbreaking evidence, Oliver decides it's time to face reality. He orchestrates his return, determined to catch Sarah and Michael red-handed. That morning, Oliver pretended to leave the house to go to the airport. But in reality, he was hiding on a street corner, watching closely for movement in the house. Unsurprisingly, within half an hour, Michael's yellow Lamborghini was parked in front of his house. Oliver's heart raced as he watched Michael walk into his home as if it were normal. Oliver gave them 15 minutes, then quietly unlocked the front door with his key. He walked gingerly up the stairs, each step making his heart heavier. The moment he pushed open the bedroom door, the sight before him gave him a momentary wave of vertigo. Sarah and Michael are snuggling intimately in his and Sarah's marital bed, neither of them noticing that the door has been opened. Oliver could clearly see the look of happiness on Sarah's face, an expression he hadn't seen on her face in a long time. "Looks like I came back just in time," Oliver said coldly, pain and anger in his voice. Sarah and Michael jumped as if struck by lightning, the expressions on their faces rapidly changing from horror to shame and fear. "Oh, Oliver," stammered Sarah, her face pale. Aren't you in Paris?" Oliver sneered. "Apparently, you guys want me to stay in Paris forever, don't you?" so that you can betray me with impunity in my house, in my bed. Michael tried to explain. Oliver, listen to me. It's not what you think. But Oliver doesn't want to hear any more explanations. The anger and pain that had accumulated over the days erupted like a volcano. He rushed forward and punched Michael hard in the face. "Get out of my house," Oliver growled. "Both of you, get out of my house. I don't want to see any of you again." Sarah cried and stumbled in her clothes while Michael covered his bleeding nose and kept apologizing. Oliver stood there, watching the unfaithful lovers flee in disarray, and felt a sharp pang of disgust and betrayal. Shortly after Sarah and Michael left, the doorbell rang. Oliver took a deep breath, straightened his clothes, and went to the door. There were 2 police officers standing outside the door, and Oliver knew that it was probably Sarah or Michael who had called the police. However, just as Oliver is about to explain the situation, an unexpected visitor shows up. Sophie Thompson, the social worker, hurried over. "Mr. Wright," panted Sophie, "I am sorry to disturb you, but there is something urgent I must tell you." As the police looked on, Sophie explained, "Mr. Wright, your ex-wife Sarah was admitted to the hospital a few hours ago. She tried to kill herself. In her apartment, we found this." Sophie hands Oliver an envelope. Oliver opened the envelope with a shaky hand and began to read the contents. As he read on, his expression changed from anger to shock and finally to deep sadness. How is this possible?" Oliver muttered. Sophie said softly, "Sarah mentioned in her letter that you have twin daughters. She has been hiding this fact from you, even when you were divorced. But now, she is experiencing severe depression problems and is unable to continue caring for her children." Oliver felt a twinge of heaven. He has children? And twin girls? The news was like a bolt from the blue, leaving him unable to react for a moment. But how is that possible?" Oliver asked, confused. "How can I be sure that these children are really mine?" Sophie pulled a folder out of her bag. "Here are the results of the DNA test that Sarah requested after she was hospitalized. The results show that you are indeed the twins' biological father." Oliver scrutinized the DNA test report and confirmed its authenticity. His heart was filled with mixed emotions: anger, confusion, sadness, and a hint of inexplicable joy. "The children, where are they now?" Oliver finally found his voice. Sophie replied, "They are currently in a temporary foster home. But considering that you are their biological father, we can arrange for you to meet them if you wish." Oliver didn't hesitate. "Take me to them. Now." On the way to meet the twins, Oliver's heart is filled with mixed emotions. He didn't know if he was ready to be a father, but he knew that he couldn't repeat Sarah's mistake and deny these children the right to have a father. When Oliver meets Lily and Rose for the first time, his heart melts instantly. The 10-year-old twins, who had the same blue eyes and curly blonde hair as he did, looked timidly at the strange man, unsure of what to do. Oliver crouched down and whispered, "Hi, I'm Oliver." "I'm your dad." The girls' eyes widened in surprise. Then in unison, they jumped into Oliver's arms. In that moment, Oliver felt a sense of happiness and responsibility that he had never felt before. From that day on, Oliver's life changed forever. He is no longer just a successful architect, but a full-time father. Despite the rocky road, Oliver is determined to create a loving and warm home for his daughters. As for Sarah, even though Oliver can't forgive her for her betrayal, he decides to give her the support she needs to help her through it, out of consideration for her children. After all, no matter what happens, Sarah will always be Lily and Rose's mother. After weathering the storm, Oliver realizes the impermanence of life and the importance of cherishing the moment. He is determined to make the most of this opportunity to start over and create a better future for himself and his daughters. Sunlight poured into the room through a gap in the curtains, and Oliver, Wright, slowly opened his eyes. The alarm clock on the nightstand read 6:30 a.m., a half hour before the alarm went off. He got up gingerly, afraid of waking Lily and Rose, who were sleeping in the next room. This is Oliver's 3rd month as a single father. The initial hand-wringing has gradually been replaced by a new rhythm of life. He learned how to brush the girls' hair, how to prepare a well-balanced breakfast, and even mastered some simple sewing skills to mend the girls' clothes. Oliver gently pushed open the door to Lily and Rose's room and looked at the sleeping twins, a warm current welling up in his heart. The girls' faces are so similar, yet each has its own characteristics. Lily has slightly upturned eyelashes, while Rose has a tiny freckle on the tip of her nose. Oliver couldn't help but smile, remembering how shocked and overwhelmed he was when he first met them. Closing the door, Oliver walks into the kitchen and starts preparing breakfast. Just then, his cell phone vibrated with a message from Paul Johnson. "Oliver, good morning. I hope I'm not disturbing you. We have an important video conference today at 2 p.m. to discuss the details of the new program. Can you participate?" Oliver looked at the time and replied, "No problem, Paul. I'll set it up." Putting his cell phone down, Oliver took a deep breath. Since taking over custody of the twins, he has struggled to balance work and family life. Fortunately, Paul was very understanding of his situation and gave him a lot of flexibility. Instead of alienating him because of his family's change of heart, Johnson Art offered more support and trust. Once breakfast is ready, Oliver gently wakes Lily and Rose. Oliver felt a surge of happiness as he watched his two daughters sleepily walk into the kitchen. "Good morning, my little princesses," Oliver said with a smile. "What would you like to eat today? We have pancakes, fruit salad, and fresh orange juice." "I want pancakes," Lily said excitedly. "Me too," Rose echoed. Oliver smiled and served the girls their food before sitting down to eat breakfast with them. This cozy family time is the part of his life he now cherishes the most. "Daddy," Rose asked suddenly, "when will Mommy come back to see us?" Oliver's smile froze. Since Sarah's release from the hospital, she's been in psychotherapy and isn't ready to see the kids. Oliver tried to keep his voice steady. "Mom's still recovering from her illness. She'll come visit you guys when she's better." Lily and Rose exchanged a look and seemed to sense something, but neither pressed further. A pang ran through Oliver's heart as he realized how much his daughters must miss their mother. After dropping the girls off at school, Oliver returns home to his study and begins to take care of work business. As lead designer for Johnson Art, he is responsible for several of the company's most important projects. Despite his busy schedule, Oliver has found that his creativity seems to flourish with his daughters in tow. At 2 p.m., Oliver was on time for the video conference with Paul. On the screen, Paul's smile remains gentle and gracious. "Oliver, you're looking well," Paul said. "Is home life still settling in well?" Oliver smiled and nodded. "Thanks for asking, Paul. It's certainly been a bit of a challenge, but it's also brought a lot of joy." "That's good," Paul said. "We're all very proud of you, Oliver. Not only are you a brilliant architect, you're also a competent father." Next, they discussed the details of several new programs. The most notable of these is a large-scale eco-city design project that will be Johnson Art's most challenging project to date. "Oliver, we all agreed that you were the right person for this project," said Paul. "Your understanding of environmental concepts, coupled with your extensive experience on large-scale projects, was exactly what we needed." Oliver felt a surge of excitement, but then some hesitation. "Paul, I'm very interested. But how long will this project take? I need to think about Lily and Rose." Paul interrupted with a smile. "Don't worry, Oliver. We've taken your situation into account. Most of the work on this project can be done in London, with only a few occasions requiring you to visit the site in person. We'll try to schedule it during the girls' school holidays so you can take them with you." Oliver was moved beyond words. He hadn't realized the company would be so thoughtful for him. "Thank you, Paul," Oliver said sincerely. "I don't know what to say." Paul waved his hand. "You're welcome, Oliver. You're our most valuable team member. We all want you to be able to find a balance between work and family." After the meeting, Oliver leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath. He felt a sense of excitement and anticipation that had been long overdue. The program was not only a great professional challenge, but also an opportunity for him to prove himself to his daughters. Just then, the doorbell rang. Oliver walks to the door and finds it's his neighbor Emma, Paul Johnson's daughter. "Hi, Oliver," Emma said with a smile. "I was just passing by and wanted to ask if you needed help picking up the girls from school. I heard you had an important meeting today." Oliver looked at Emma gratefully. Thank you so much, Emma. But the meeting had just ended and I had time to pick them up. But if you don't mind, maybe you could accompany me? The girls love you. Emma agreed with alacrity. On the way to school, Oliver tells Emma about the new program. That's fantastic, Oliver, exclaimed Emma. I knew Dad would value your talents. Oliver smiled and gave Emma a look. Emma has been one of his biggest supporters since he moved to this new home. Not only does she often help with Lily and Rose, but she is always there when Oliver needs help the most. Emma, Oliver hesitated, then said, I don't know how I'm going to get through these months without your help. I really appreciate it. Emma's face flushed slightly. Don't say that, Oliver. I enjoyed my time with you guys. Lily and Rose are like my own sisters. Their eyes met in the air, and Oliver felt his heart race. He suddenly realized that maybe Emma was more than just a good neighbor and friend to him. Just then the school arrived. Lily and Rose interrupted this delicate moment by running towards them with cheers. Daddy, Aunt Emma, the girls exclaimed excitedly. Why are you all here to pick us up? Oliver crouched down and hugged his daughters with open arms. Because we have good news for you. We're going on a trip together. Lily and Rose cheered and pestered Oliver with questions. Emma stood by, grinning at the scene. On the way home, Oliver's heart was filled with hope. He knows that there may still be many challenges ahead, but with the love of his daughters, the support of Paul, and the company of Emma, he believes he can overcome anything. Oliver smiled as he watched Emma gently fix Lily's hair in the rearview mirror. He realized that maybe this was a second chance that fate had given him, a chance to start over. No matter what the future holds, he will cherish every moment in front of him and strive to be a good father, a brilliant architect, and perhaps a man worthy of being loved. As night falls, Oliver sits in a rocking chair in the yard and watches Lily and Rose chase and play in the grass. Emma sat next to him, and the two of them enjoyed the moment of silence. Oliver, Emma said softly, you know, you're really something. Oliver turned his head and met Emma's gentle gaze. Why all of a sudden? Emma smiled and explained, look at how you've changed in the last few months. From an architect with a successful career but an unbalanced life, to a single dad who can perfectly balance career and family. You've given Lily and Rose a loving home, while also breaking new ground in your career. It's really not easy. Oliver felt a rush of warmth come over him. He reached out and gently took Emma's hand. Thank you, Emma. I probably couldn't have done any of this without your support. The two smiled at each other, and Oliver suddenly realized that maybe this was the kind of peace and happiness he had been looking for. It doesn't need to be amazing. It just needs to be surrounded by people who love him, a career that is worth his while, and a family that he can devote himself to. Daddy, Aunt Emma. Lily and Rose's call interrupted their sweet moment. Can we play a little longer? Oliver looked at his watch and smiled. 10 more minutes of fun, and then we should get ready for bed. We have to get up early tomorrow. Watching their daughters run away cheering, Oliver and Emma smiled at each other. They know that this is just the beginning of a new life and that there is a long road ahead. But right now, on this quiet night, in this loving family, everything seems so beautiful. Oliver took a deep breath, his heart filled with gratitude and anticipation. He knows that no matter what the future holds, with love and courage, he can face all challenges and create his own happiness. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.